So another story about Truk. I I had two um, native brothers, that's what we called them when we were out there. So, I was only 9 years old, and my brothers were all older than me. So I had three brothers out there, and then my mother and father for the first year. After that, we kind of dispersed out on the world. And anyway, so I had two native brothers. One of them was Siete, and the other one was Leonard Cox. Now, Leonard Cox was from the outer islands out there. I think he might have been from Yap, and I think I might have mentioned him. So, um, people out there have a sense of humor. Uh, it, when you're out there, humor comes in pretty handy. You're on a little island with the same people day after day. Um, it's a very different type of life. So I grew up. The women would go to the stream and wash clothes by pounding them with sticks on rocks and then beating them against the rocks. And they were all topless there when they did that. They wore clothes when they were around. The missionaries came out there and kind of changed their culture away. So anyway, I grew up with that and a lot of other um, cultural stuff out there. The Truckies love sticks, where you could look them up on the internet. I don't have any, but so a guy would make a stick, and then when they would show it off to girls, the girls they like. Well, at that time they lived in thatch houses. Well, not when I was there. They found plywood and corrugated metal was a lot better. It held up a lot more. But thatch houses still did exist. Um, so they'd go up and they would stick their love stick through the thatching, and the girl could then feel the bumps on the love stick and determine who it was and um, determine if they wanted to go out or not. So, they'd either pull on the stick to say, yeah, I'm going to come out, or push on the stick and say, no, go away, a family type thing. Because they all lived in a little it's one room. They all slept on the floor. They had mats they put down. They slept on the floor. They did everything on the floor. It's just a room. And that's their type of culture out there. They also spend a lot of time collecting water. So us as the Americans, we had piped water, but all the natives around us would come over. It's usually the kids. And the kids would, share holding a bucket and haul off 5-gallon buckets of water, which is amazing because in our culture today, the average American uses 125 gallons of water a day. Um, it, if you tried to carry 125 gallons, you'd be pretty tough every single day. So, we do use a lot more than we should. Out there on the islands, they didn't have a lot of water, and they had to really maintain what they used the water for. When the streams were flowing, they had quite a bit of rain, and when the streams were flowing, things were good. But when you get a dry season, water can be scarce. So the humor out there. So one of the stories goes on the outer islands. Back then we didn't have GPS. Lowrance stations were not out there, so they didn't have that. You basically worked off your gyro compass and your regular compass. Regular compasses do have magnetic deviations. So the gyro compass was actually, what really got you pointing the right direction. Well, the ship was heading out to the outer islands. Now, the outer islands, big ships can't make it out there. The draft on the ship, how far it sticks down in the water, is just too much. They can't make it through the reef, so only smaller ships can make it out there. So they're heading out to an outer island with students to return back there. and the ship had lost its gyro compass. So the hold on a minute. Now the natives, they've been going through these islands all their lives. They get in little canoes and they'll go between them. You can read stories about it, like they call it courage and things like that. But they're used to navigating the waters, and they have a lot of techniques. I'll talk about those too. So they're going towards the island, and the captain lost. He couldn't figure out where the island was. He couldn't. It's not nighttime, so he can't get a star fix, and he didn't know. And you really can't see that far, because people think you can see, 50. These islands aren't that tall, so that and high humidity and all the clouds and everything, you really can't find it. So he's going along, and he made mention to somebody. He says, where's that island at? And one of the students says, oh, it's over there, and he pointed the direction. And so the captain headed that direction, and sure enough, the island's there. And he's like, wow, how did you know the island was here? And this this student looked at me and says, it's always been here. So that's one of the funny stories, because it has to do with our Western culture and the Polynesian culture. One of the other things they did was, when they went on a boat, they would always bring a pig. They didn't bring bananas. Bananas always have a bad thing. I don't think they brought bananas. So yet they'd have to, in order to bring banana trees from one island to another, they brought the stalks and stuff. But for the bananas part I'm not real sure about, but I know they did bring a pig. And people had their positions, which is why when you became a navigator, you had a special tattoo. And I think that's the tattoo that was on Moana, the cartoon and everything, and people get upset about it. But there are specific tattoos for navigators. And the Polynesian knows the style and everything like that, so I'm not an expert on it. But one of the things, if you got lost out in the ocean, and you can do that, a storm goes through and you don't know where you are now after, they'd have to try to find these islands. And you did have a captain of the boat, but you also have the navigator. The navigator is a separate position. So the navigator would take all of his clothes off and jump in the water in the middle of the ocean. And he would just float there, and he'd float there for quite a while. And then he would get out and tell the captain where the island is, where they actually need to be headed. So what I believe that actually is, and it's all supposed to be secret, I haven't been trained in it at all, but I do know that if you've been in the water long enough, if you stay underwater, especially like scuba diving, when your body equalizes, everything becomes super loud. And I believe that's what they were working on, was that sound travels very well in the ocean, and I think that's what they were doing, was listening to the waves hit the reefs, and they can determine where it is by the sounds. But they never taught me that, and it's all supposed to be magic. They also do make maps, which give, they're just sticks with shells on it tied together. It's like splints of bamboo, and they're all tied together at a different web pattern, like something like your fingers crossing like this. Then they'd have little shells on it. And those are supposed to be the wave patterns for the map for getting to different islands. That's pretty much all I really wanted to say about that. But the Polynesian, the Truckies, they're pretty funny people. They did a lot of fun things. Except